Good afternoon. This is Sarah Green, live from Dallas, Texas on ClearSource Radio. You're either listening to us at clearsourceradio.com or you've downloaded the app, and I appreciate you being here. You're going to have to excuse me today because I have a cold and I'm actually nursing some hot tea, and so I sound a little funny, but we're just going to have to roll with it because the show has to go on. Before I get started today, I want to give a shout out to one of my sponsors, my buddies over at Mini of Arlington. I bought a new car last week. Mini Cooper has always been my favorite car, and Mini of Arlington has always been the dealership that I've used. And I went in last week in kind of a yucky upside down situation, and they really, really worked with me and helped me to get me into the exact car that I wanted. At the exact payment and price that I wanted. So I just want to give a little shout out to Mini of Arlington and let people in the Metroplex know that if you're looking for a car, you can go over there and see my buddy Aubrey. She really helped me out, and I am grateful and appreciative to them. Okay, so moving on, I have Abbey Robinson today. Abbey is a sister friend of mine from a long way back, and she's had an amazing transformation in her life in the last, I think it's over 10 years that we've known each other. She's grown her business, Fort Worth Doula. She was rated best doula in the Metroplex for the last 3 years running. She is a certified ProDoula trainer. She's also got a certification in I'm going to let her, it's something to do with Montessori and setting up your house for children in the Montessori way, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So she's a trainer, and she's a doula, and she has her own doula agency, and she's a mother of 4, and she has her own personal story around her births, and I just think what she's done with her life and her business and the way that she's created it as a single mom, and she's kind of built her little empire and continues to build it. She's been an inspiration to me and continues to be every day. And right now, Abbey is calling in from the labor and delivery floor at a local hospital. She's actually at a birth. So if she has to go, we will keep the show running, and I'll talk about some of my experiences in the birth world and birth industry. But hopefully she'll be able to be here with us the whole hour. So Abbey, say hi.
Hi, thank you guys.
So you got called in last night to a birth, correct?
I did, yes. So I am looking out at a beautiful view of Dallas from the top floor of a Dallas hospital, and my client is well, and she's taken care of at the moment, and told me I needed to step out and do this show. Okay. So I'm grateful to her.
Yeah, tell her I said thanks. I appreciate her sharing you with us. And that's kind of how it goes. I know, being your friend, that you often have nights where you don't rest. And you were just telling me before we started the broadcast that you kind of laid down and slept in your shoes for a little bit last night. So tell me, I want to talk about how you got into this and kind of how it started for you. But just since you're there at this birth, tell me what it's like, the life of a doula.
Well, the average lifespan of a doula is about 2 to 3 years, and that's somebody who does it part-time because it is so demanding. It's so physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausting. And if you guys hear background noise, I apologize. I am, again, in a hospital, so I couldn't really find a really quiet place to go, but this is the best I could do.
We'll roll with it.
The life of a doula, you're always on call 24/7. You have to be prepared to drop anything and everything that you're doing, including children's birthdays, holidays, dinner out, whatever you're doing. You may find yourself walking away from and leaving, which becomes very taxing on not only you but your entire family. So it's a pretty stressful lifestyle.
So it's something you're called to do for sure, and people, want to do it. It's a calling. It's not a thing that you do because, oh, hey, I think I'm going to go be a doula.
Yeah, and, a lot of people, it sounds really exciting. It sounds really fun. It sounds really cool, and it is, don't get me wrong. But it's also the kind of work you can't do unless you love.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm certified with an organization called ProDoula, who really focuses on the professionalism of doulas. We want to kind of raise the level of professionalism so that we're not just seen as this person that's jumping into this industry just kind of haphazardly and not really knowing what they're getting themselves into as far as the lifestyle and kind of bringing everything to the table as a professional. But we focus on the business part because you can't really do this work unless your heart's in it. But a lot of us that work from our heart, we lack the business skills. And so it becomes unsustainable. And we can't do it long term unless you really have somebody mentoring you through that business part.
Right, right. Okay, and so tell me, and I know a little bit about that because I did a midwifery apprenticeship, and I realized pretty quickly into it that there was no way I was going to be able to do that and maintain, raising my kids and when they were, because they were very small. It was a bad time in my life to try and do that. So tell me how you got into this.
So I have 4 children. I had some really difficult experiences birthing them. And my oldest daughter is 19. She was born in 1996. And she just stopped moving. So I ended up with a cesarean with her. And I took a birthing class. I learned about doulas in that birthing class, but I didn't hire one. I never thought I would need one. It's just kind of, people have babies all the time. So it never really crossed my mind to actually bring one in until I had that experience. And so my second child, who was born in 1999, I hired a doula for that birth because some of the guidelines changed as far as what needed to happen at my delivery with having had a previous cesarean. I still ended up with an experience that I would not have planned and didn't really want, but having a doula there made a huge difference in kind of my recovery and the way that I saw things. It helped me have a lot more positive experience just having had the support. So it was after that child turned 2, I decided it was something that I wanted to do to kind of give back and really help women feel supported and cared for and empowered during that experience, because it's something that sticks with you the rest of your life.
Right, right. And so what was the process like for you to get your training and get certified? I know before you were trained by a different organization and then you switched over to ProDoula, but as a general rule, what is the process like to be certified or to get the training that you need to be a competent and functional doula?
Right. Well, there are many certifying organizations out there, and it can vary anywhere from just some online program, which I don't recommend. I think you really need to take an in-person training. You need to connect with people, and you need to physically be there with other people who are doing this. And I say people because it's not just women. There are some men who are also doulas. It is primarily women. But we do, and ProDoula does an in-person training. We do a 2-day workshop for labor doulas. We also train postpartum doulas, where you're working with families after they have their babies. And then there's reading, there's writing, there's test taking. So it's a process that continues after your workshop. And that's pretty consistent for most organizations. They have a training and then again reading, writing, making that connections. We really encourage you researching your local resources, contacting people who work in your community, knowing what to expect from your region. Okay.
And is there continuing ed that you're required to take in order to keep your certificate or not?
There is, for us, there's some reading and essay writing that you need to do.
When you say us, you mean ProDoula?
But to stay certified there is, but there is a plethora of continuing education you can do. And you're just kind of taking it upon yourself. We expect our members to be professional and to really take responsibility for their own education and, be professional.
And so, I mean, I guess, you're a doula, you're doing birth. So, and I know the world of birth, and every birth is very different. And so that's a
Absolutely.
continuing education in and of itself, just showing up to the births. And
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you never stop learning from the experiences you have, and that's where you gain most of your knowledge and understanding, and really where people need to go to get what they want and what they expect, and guiding them that way before the birth. It's let us, if that's what you want and that's what you expect from your birth, then this is who you need to go see. This is who you need to receive care from, because we're all human beings. Doctors are human beings. Every hospital has kind of its own culture and the way that they do things. And so if you have certain expectations for your delivery, then we will guide you to where you need to be in order to meet those expectations.
Okay. And that leads me to kind of my next thing. Obviously, you're the kind of thing people seek you out. They want to have a doula.
Mm-hmm.
And so how does someone, if you're a consumer, and you're researching and you're looking for a doula and you want to hire, the best one that's the best fit for you, how do you find that person? What are some tips and tricks for you if people are looking to hire someone? How do they find someone that's a good fit for their family and their needs?
Yeah, well, speaking for my organization, we really treat every woman like she knows what she wants, and we respect what she wants no matter what that is. We try to adapt to different birthing practices and different wishes, different experiences, and tailor everything to what you need. We provide non-judgmental care. So if you're having a cesarean, we support you. If you're having an epidural, we support you. If you want a natural birth, we're going to support you the best that we can. We just want to help you have the best possible experience that you can have, regardless of how you choose to give birth or how whether plans change and you end up giving birth in a different way than you originally planned. Different organizations have different ways that they train, and I can really only speak for mine and the way that we do things. There are a lot of different kinds of doulas out there, and I'm really trying hard to break up the stereotype that doulas are only for home births or only for natural births or midwife births, and I love all kinds of births, for me and my group, we really work with everybody. So I really don't know. You can Google, you can read, look at different websites, just kind of see where you feel like you fit best, and go from there.
Okay, and I like what you said, and I do like what ProDoula is doing, and I've actually personally been to a ProDoula class just on marketing your business and social media and all that I found really informative, and I really like what they're doing there. I like the way that they're empowering women to empower women. And I like that we're moving away from this place of there's only one way to give birth. There's only
Yes.
one right way to give birth, and it has to be this way because everybody comes in with a different experience. And, speaking, I've had a home birth, I've had hospital births, I've had cesareans, and they're all different and valid and valuable experiences. And I think we tend to, it's super polarizing. There's a lot of judgment, a lot of
Yes.
criticism about, it's super polarizing. And for me, sitting here now at 41 and with 4 children of varying ages, and I have an adopted kid, so my kids came here all different ways. I realized that, I don't want to, it is important. How our children get here is important, and our birth experiences as women are important. But I am going to go out on a limb, and I'm probably going to get some hate mail for this. I think that sometimes too much emphasis is placed on how our babies get here and not the fact that they're here.
Right.
And I don't know if you agree. You may not. You don't have to say anything to that. That's my personal feeling.
No, I completely agree. And it was when I really, I've evolved a lot over the years. I started this work 15 years ago, actually. And, I really started off with it being, I really wanted to save women from kind of this horrible medicalized practice that we do. And granted, I'm not discounting that a lot of that is still out there. But as a doula, our job is to support the woman. It's not to take over for her. It's not to undermine her choices. Like I said, we try to set expectations so that they have a realistic understanding of where they're delivering, who they're delivering with, and then kind of what to expect from that specific provider and that specific practice and that specific hospital or birth center or, home that they're going to. But it's not our job to step in and take over for them. Like, we don't need to fight their fight for them or be advocates for them, because they have a voice. And if we just simply support them where they are, they can do so much more, and they feel so much more empowered when it's coming from within them than it is from us. So yeah, it definitely has come a long way for me, just having those experiences of women who then it becomes their choice to have an epidural. And that epidural birth was the most healing experience that they could possibly have. And I see that in them, and it's so powerful. But they owned it. And it's a beautiful thing to watch unfold.
Right. And what I'm hearing you say is that your goal as a doula is to educate your client and educate your consumer and give them all the information that you have at your disposal, and then let them make their own decisions and support them through that.
Right. And, it's a little different, and there's not a lot of educating we do. We provide resources and we answer questions, and we're there for them in the capacity that they want to unfold in front of us, but we don't push them any certain direction. Okay. We do recommend a class, and some of us teach classes, but that it's kind of under a little bit of different hat than the doula role. The doula is there simply to support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So that's super, because that's a totally different paradigm. Because I was part of that whole school of, well, the only way to have a baby is at home. And I went to midwifery school, right. And, and all of this, I think at that point I was doing as much fear mongering about having a baby in a hospital as doctors were doing fear mongering about having a baby at home.
And I do see that still. There are midwives that fear monger. There are doulas that fear monger. And there are childbirth education classes that fear monger, and they really scare women into thinking they need to birth a certain way in order to have a certain experience or to have a certain satisfaction with their birth, when really, what they need to take away is that you can have an incredibly positive and beautiful experience no matter what happens, if you've got the right support, if you've got people there that really genuinely care about you and your goals and what happens to you. That's really the core of this, is that you are assembling a team that cares about what you care about, not scaring you away from things that you might possibly end up needing.
Okay, and so, let's talk about the different types of birth. Let's start out talking about home births and what's brilliant and beautiful and the positive points about home birth. I don't want to go into the negatives because everybody
Sure, absolutely.
But I want to talk about different kinds of births we can have, and I want to talk about the positives of those different types of births. So let's start, with home birth, which is becoming more and more popular in this country.
Sure.
And the good, beautiful things that happen.
Home is amazing because you're at home. If you know the mechanics of birth, your cervix has to open in order for your baby to come out. The cervix, if you read any Ina May Gaskin, is a sphincter. It's a muscle. It's got to relax in order to open. And our sphincters open best at home. when we're not being watched by strangers and we don't have strange people around us. And so most women are most relaxed at home. And there are lots of amazing midwives out there who can serve those women. The thing with home is you need to be low risk. You can't have certain risk factors. And so if you do, then you'd be risked out of that care. But yeah, it can be an amazing experience for women who are able to do that.
And so, and that's interesting, that about, or that is, I think that is true. You're at home, you're comfortable, you're in your own space, you're in your own environment, but you do have to be low risk. Not everybody would qualify for that. I mean, I know if I were to have a baby right now, God forbid, my age and some of my other health things might risk me out of that. Okay, so then your next level is you would move on to maybe a birth center birth. So like a freestanding birth center. So explain what that is to people who don't know what a freestanding birth center is.
So a freestanding birth center is, we don't have any here that have obstetricians working in them. They're run by either a certified professional midwife or a certified nurse midwife. There are fewer in the Metroplex that are CNM or certified nurse midwife run birth centers. But they're not connected to hospitals. Some of them are very close proximity to hospitals, and some of them are pretty far from hospitals. There's not really a rule about that. But it's a place you go to have your baby. You're not going to have the option of medication at a birth center because once you have certain, medications in your system, you really need to be in a hospital because there are certain risks to having those medications that they need to have the baby on the monitor and they need to be watching you pretty closely. There are a couple of birth centers that offer nitrous oxide, otherwise known as laughing gas, as an option. It's considered a really low risk pain management tool. But other than that, you're not really going to have those options at birth centers. Birth centers are more home-like. I don't know of any birth centers around here that don't offer the option of like a tub to get in to be in water, either to just labor in or to deliver in. The benefits of water are very well documented as far as comfort. It helps mom relax. It's nice and warm. You get in there and you just automatically feel a lot more relaxed. And that really helps a lot of women achieve that natural delivery that they want.
Okay. And I had no idea that there were birth centers that offered nitrous. That's fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's a newer thing within the last few years. It's catching on, and we've got a few hospitals offering nitrous too.
Have you been to a birth where nitrous was used?
Yes.
And what's it like?
I think that everyone should have it. I think every hospital, every labor and delivery unit, and I think every birth center should have it. I think that it's an amazing option because it really seems to help, and it's very fast acting. Essentially what happens is mom breathes it in. And then once she breathes out and takes the mask off her face, then it's out of her system. So it's pretty quick. It's also a really great option if she's had a natural delivery and she's had some tears on her perineum and they need to repair those. That it can be really helpful to help her kind of cope with that.
Right, because when we haven't had drugs and we have to have our lady bits sewn up, that hurts.
Right, and everyone uses lidocaine, so they do numb the area, but, lidocaine is more effective in some parts than it is in others, and so it is still really tender and sore.
Gotcha. Okay, and let's talk about, a certified professional midwife versus a certified nurse midwife. I know we're here in Texas, and so we get to have both kinds, but not everybody does.
Yes.
And so tell everybody what the difference is between those two.
Right. So in Texas, CPNs are completely legal. Home birth is completely legal. It's not in every state in the United States. Some places it's illegal or illegal. I don't even want to get into all that because I don't even know what all that means because we're in Texas where, you can have a home birth. A CPN goes through an apprenticeship program and is licensed by the state through a test, and she works with other midwives through other midwives, and then she's free to practice. CPMs can only do out-of-hospital deliveries and work with low-risk women. So they can do home births and they can do birth center births. Certified nurse midwives go through a nursing program, and then they go through a midwifery program. They can write prescriptions. They can do ultrasounds. They can do home births, birth center births, or hospitals. Most CNMs work in hospitals, but you will find little pockets of them that will do birth centers, or every once in a while you can find a CNM who does a home birth.
Okay. All right. So, and I love that in Texas, I did my midwifery apprenticeship, part of it here, and I did the other part in Missouri where it was illegal. And, it's a different tone when you're practicing illegally. It's scary. And in my opinion, they don't get the care that they need. And I came to find out that the midwife I was practicing under really wasn't qualified and really didn't have the skills. And we actually had a stillbirth that was handled really poorly by the midwife. And I think that would not have occurred if we'd been in Texas, where you have a board and you have peer review and you have other people watching over you, and there's standards and there's licensing. And so, we could talk about that for an hour, but I'm grateful to be in Texas as far as the options that we have for our maternity care and for our birth care, because we do have a lot of choices.
Absolutely. In my opinion, this is the best place to give birth in the country, because we have working relationships between CPMs, CNMs, obstetricians, hospitals, birth centers. And if you're delivering at home and you get into a situation where they need to transfer you to a hospital, you know, that usually goes pretty smoothly, and they know the ones to go to where they are going to be welcomed and not, treated poorly. And when you're in those places where midwifery at home is illegal, they are scared to bring you into a hospital because they're scared of being prosecuted. So we live in a wonderful place where we have lots of options, and people feel safe.
Right. And, I think it's important to just reiterate for people that aren't familiar with the concept of home birth, and not that I'm pushing that, but we're talking about options and we're talking about choices, that when you are at home and a complication arises, 99% of the time it's a complication that arises with plenty of notice or plenty of, and you have time to transport and you have time to deal with the situation because you're aware of it in plenty of time. And the other last minute things that come up that are the scary little last minute things, midwives are trained to handle those. And so the risk of giving birth at home and of having something really horrible happen and having a complication where you lose somebody, or, really that doesn't happen very often at all. I don't even know here in Texas, since in the last 20 something years I've been involved in the birth community, that there's just been maybe one, a story that I can think of where something bad happened, where if the baby had been in the hospital, and the mom had been in the hospital, that it would have been different. So it's a super viable option for anybody that wants to look into it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, things do happen. It usually is reviewed and looked at. But, again, like you're saying, I want to say close to 90% of transfers from home and birth centers are from what they call maternal exhaustion. That just means that mom's super tired. She's probably been laboring a long time. She may need an epidural, and just some rest. And so you go to plan B. And that's the majority of what transfers happen for. It's not super emergent things. They're trained to watch for those things and anticipate, if baby starts not looking good or mom starts really having, health issues, to transfer her out. But, ask your midwife lots of questions. Ask what her protocol is. Ask how long it takes to get to the hospital. Look at all those things. Take all those things into consideration. And, ultimately you have to be where you feel safe.
Right.
So that's the other thing. What is your gut telling you?
Yeah. And that leads me to like the next level of care after, so you've got home birth, you've got a freestanding birth center, and you've got just a hospital birth where you
Sure.
want to do it free from medication, medication free
Right.
or a low intervention hospital birth. So let's
And
talk
so
about
there
that.
are several options around the Metroplex for certified nurse midwives that do in-hospital deliveries. And you're going to have, they're going to be more experienced with unmedicated or natural or, epidural-free births. We've got a big group at Harris, Fort Worth, downtown Fort Worth, the UNT midwives, and then we have at Harris Southwest, we have the Grace midwives, who are pretty new there, but they're doing amazing, amazing work. They used to work down at Harris Cleburne, and they've moved up to Southwest. And there's a couple places, I want to say in Dallas. I'm not as familiar with the Dallas area because I'm Fort Worth doula, but we do some Dallas deliveries. Like I said, I'm at one today, but there are definitely those options in the hospital as well. UNT right now are the only ones that I know of that do water birth in the hospital. But again, like if you're doing a water birth, you don't have an epidural. You're not on any medication, and you still are relatively low risk. They also do some pretty high-risk deliveries because they are CNMs. They are in the hospital. They can still see you if you turn high risk or you're maybe advanced maternal age, something like that. I've had some pretty high-risk deliveries there. And then you've got kind of different OBs around the Metroplex that support natural birth. There are lots of options for that, depending on, again, what your risk factors are. And then you've just got kind of standard OB practices, which is the majority around the Metroplex, that you may not get quite as much freedom to do what you want. But again, that's the benefit of having an expert to talk to, having a doula that has the experience with all these different providers. We know what kind of they do as a standard practice, and we can really guide you to where you want to be and who you want to be with and where you feel safest and most comfortable.
Yeah, okay, so we've got certified nurse midwives in hospitals now, which is super awesome, that's a low risk, low medication, a little bit more freedom. That's kind of the next level, or another choice. I shouldn't say next level, but I'm just trying to go up the chain all the way from a hospital birth to like
Right.
managed. And there's purposes and reasons for each different kind of scenario, and it's going to vary with each mom. I mean, I know I would qualify, I think, for advanced maternal age. So,
well, me too.
Yeah. Okay, and so then we talk about, I think when people think birth, whatever they think they're going to have a baby, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of people just go, okay, well, I'm going to go with my OB, and I'm going to go to the hospital, and I'm going to have a baby, and I'm probably going to have an epidural, and I'm going to, which is also super a valid choice.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that and what those look like.
Yeah, and we totally support that too. Again, it's about what makes you feel safest, and maybe you feel safest in that highly kind of controlled and medicalized environment. That's okay. Like, there is nothing wrong with that either. Maybe you don't want to feel pain. That's kind of impossible. If you're having a baby, you're going to feel some pain because it's hard to get that baby out without something happening. But we can help you get to a point where, getting an epidural has less risk. And some people don't know that getting an epidural, there's some risk to that. When you go in very early labor and you get your epidural placed, it can slow things down. So waiting until you're in a really established pattern can really lower the risk of slowing it down. And then you don't really want to slow it down because then you're more likely to end up with a cesarean. And maybe you want to avoid a cesarean because it's surgery. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're planning a cesarean. That's okay too. We can still help you have kind of the best experience no matter what your choice is. But again, it's highly individualized. Like you kind of have to get with someone, really talk to somebody about what you want and what you're comfortable with, in order to know where to go, where the best place to go would be.
Okay. And then you talked about, then obviously there's people that have planned cesareans and there's unplanned
Sure.
cesareans. And I know
Sure.
here, because I've seen it and I think it's brilliant, they're doing things called gentle cesareans and all
Right.
of that. So, what does that look like and what's that about?
Well, it's amazing. And we try to facilitate that kind of no matter what, whenever mom has a cesarean. And what that really means is that you're having the support people back in the OR that you want. There are certain hospitals and certain OBs that will allow more than one person back for your delivery. And, a lot of places, and we're coming from a place where they would only allow the partner, the father of the baby back. But I have gone back in the OR for many, many cesareans. We try to get the baby skin to skin, just like we would if mom was having a vaginal delivery, and she wanted the baby skin to skin. So the baby's not being handed off to the warmer immediately. Dad doesn't have to walk away from mom in order to go be with baby. She's not laying on the operating table herself, kind of, not knowing what's happening. We're still getting the baby to the chest. There are certain providers, too, that are doing what's called delayed cord clamping in the OR. A lot of women who do the research kind of on natural delivery, and that's what they want, is to kind of let the baby get the cord blood. So that means the baby's still getting cord blood even in the operating room. And there are fewer providers, obstetricians, who will do that, but there are some. So you can get with us and kind of talk to us if that's something that you're going to have a cesarean and that you want, and we can help you kind of pick the person that's going to help facilitate that for you.
Yeah, and I wish that I had that as an option, because when I had my son, my third child, I had a cesarean that I asked for. It was a home birth, and you talked about maternal exhaustion. I was done. And I'd had a previous C-section, and I was like, I'm done. I'm going to go. I'm going to have another one because I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And I quit. And so I did. But, nobody asked me, and they knocked me out after I'd had my C-section. So they knocked me out to sew me up, and I was out for 2 hours. And I missed the first 2 hours of his life, and not only that, but I had a horrible reaction to the anesthesia that they used, and my whole body was itchy, and then I was on Benadryl and all these medicines to counteract it, and so I was drowsy, and so I wish that I'd had a choice. I'm sorry, that was with my second birth.
Right.
My third birth, I knew, and that was another C-section. I went in and I said, don't knock me out. I want to be away. But man, I wish that this whole thing with gentle cesareans and the way that they're doing it now was an option back then, because I really would love that, because sometimes they're needed and sometimes they're necessary. And for those of us that need them, wow, it's a game changer. So let's talk about you as a doula, and you do this work, and I want to kind of hear, everybody likes to hear birth stories. So some stories, obviously you're not going to share clients' names or information or anything like that. And, and I don't know if you can. So if you can't share stories, tell me. But I'd love to hear some really, really cool or funny or humorous stories that you have from your career. Can we do that?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I think I can do that. I think most people are scared they're going to have the baby really fast. We see it on TV, and it always happens where her water breaks and then she's screaming and the baby's coming out and they're running really fast. And it really is not how it happens. Birth is usually really long and incredibly boring. And it's the same kind of thing. You're having contractions over and over again for hours and hours and hours. And people think that they can endure, and like dads think, oh, I can hang with this. And they just, you just can't. Like living this lifestyle where you're staying up through these deliveries is so exhausting, and you have to build up a tolerance to it. So the people who do it, we can hang with it. The people who don't, and I always tell the partner, you really need to go sleep, because you're going to have a baby to take care of. So I'm not. I'm going to get to go home and go to bed. And so they'll usually kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah. I just got a text from a client saying I could share her story, so I'll share her story. I actually, you can't predict when these babies are coming either. ACOG, which the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists says that a normal pregnancy is anywhere from 37 to 42 weeks. Most women will deliver right around, after 40 weeks, between 40 and 41 weeks. I went out of town last October, and this is a second-time mom. And I told her I was going out of town. I had a conference to go to, and I was like, you're not going to deliver because you're only 37 weeks. Sure enough, as soon as I leave town, keeps telling me I'm having contractions, but I don't think it's labor. I don't think it's labor. And I have my backup set up to go with her, my partner now, Megan. And I'm at this conference. We're having cocktails. I'm in a semi-formal gown. She calls me. I have to go get on the phone with her. I tell them, you need to get in the car. They're in the car. I'm talking her through contractions in the car, in my cocktail gown, drinking champagne in the hallway of this hotel. And she's still in denial like the whole time that she's even in labor. And they walk in the birth center. The baby is born so fast. Dad has to jump down and catch. Baby's still in the amniotic sac, so born in the caul, which is actually a sign of good luck. It's a really cool thing when that happens. The other doula had just walked in the door, and it was just really fast. And that's my experience is that second babies, if any of your babies are going to come fast, it's always going to be the second baby. The first one usually takes forever and ever. I'm talking like days of contractions to get here. I had one client, and this was an unusual birth. She carried her baby really long. It was her first baby. She went to 41 weeks and 5 days, went in, got on Pitocin for like 10 hours, still wasn't really in labor, and went back home for a few days. She went back to the hospital at 42 weeks and 3 days and had her water broken, went into labor, had an extremely, extremely long labor, pushed for several hours, finally got an epidural, went to sleep for a while. They came in that morning and got the baby delivered, but this woman was 10 centimeters for 12 hours. And to this day, that's the longest I've ever had anyone complete, as they call it. She finally delivered her baby, had a vaginal delivery. It was pretty traumatic for her because it just was not anything like what she planned. She got pregnant again, and we talked about how, the next birth would probably be easier. But it was so hard for her to even think about that because the first one was so difficult that she couldn't even kind of let her mind go there. But they decided they were going to deliver at a birth center this time. So I was actually with you. We were watching a little concert in Roanoke in the grass, just kind of hanging out with the kids when she texted me saying she'd been having contractions. And I was like, oh, okay, no big deal. Just let me know, whatever. Well, as soon as I got home, she says, okay, I think we're going to head up there. The midwife called me and said, Abbey, I'm not sure she's in labor. She was asking me if I had a hair dryer. Because usually when you're in active labor, you're not really worried about things like hair dryers, and you're not really carrying on a conversation with people. You're working really hard, and you're pretty uncomfortable. And I said, gosh, I don't know. I think she knows because she's really tough. Like, I watched her have her last baby. Well, I called them just to verify that she was actually in labor. And as soon as her husband picked up the phone, he goes, her water just broke. She's feeling pressure. So I gassed it. Like, I started speeding into Fort Worth. Don't tell anyone. I was probably driving 100. And I pull up to the birth center. I had just beat them there. I ran upstairs. The photographer's there kind of taking pictures. I said, I'm going to go downstairs and meet them. And they had their baby in the parking lot as soon as they pulled up. And so we ran outside, and we are just screaming in joy because this baby came so fast and so easy when her first one was so difficult. But it just kind of was this very, very redeeming birth for all of us, her whole family, because it was so, and you know, a lot of doctors would have given her a cesarean and said that baby won't fit for that first baby. And then the second one just really flew out, and it was an amazing experience.
Wow. Yeah. And, you know, that's something to patients, you know, with that first one. I don't know if I could have done that, you know. I mean, that's really some amazing testament to who she is, for that baby to have taken so long and for her to have hung in there.
Oh my gosh. And I don't, you know, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a midwife. So I, you know, and I think it's crazy to be complete that long, and I'm sure anyone would agree, but the fact is she was, and she did still have a vaginal delivery. And then this next baby just kind of, you know, came so quickly and so easily. And then that's been kind of my experience. If your first labor was really long and really hard, a lot of times the second one is just, it goes so much smoother. And that's what we're hoping for here today. The birth I'm at today is the second baby. First one was really difficult. And my client today is actually an obstetrician herself.
Oh,
so it just kind of really, that speaks volumes for what this support means to people. It's not really about the education. It's not about what you know about birth, because Lord knows she knows more than me about birth. I mean, that's what she went to medical school for, and that's what she does as a living. But that's not what she needs from me. She just needs the support from me, not the education.
And do you find now that, I think we've talked about this, that you find that, you know, 10 or 20 years ago, having a doula in the hospital room, there may have been some bumping of elbows as far as it not being appreciated that you were there. But is that shifting and changing?
Well, you know, there right now is a big division of doulas who are kind of still doing it the old way, where they're really playing an advocacy role, and they get into hospitals and they don't trust the doctors, or they don't trust the nurses, or, you know, and they create like a hostile environment because they're facilitating distrust. And that's something I'm working really hard to counteract as a doula myself, and also as a doula trainer, to get in there and to show people that the OBs are humans, the anesthesiologists are humans, the nurses are humans. They want to give people good experiences, but they are specialists in what they do, and they know the risks. And when you walk in and you create a positive environment from the get-go, and you facilitate trust, and you show them that you want to work with them, not against them, it always 100% of the time benefits your client and you and your profession. I've been allowed back at hospitals that don't typically allow doulas back in the operating room, because I'm coming in there and I am showing them that I'm a professional at what I do. And I set up that respect from the second I walk in the door. So they know that I'm not there to undermine them. I'm not there to take over for them. I'm not trying to make my client not trust them. It's really important. And I also charge a living wage for what I do. So that alone sets up this tone of professionalism with my client. They trust me more. They believe that I'm a professional because I'm charging a professional wage. You know, and I do volunteer work too. I mean, I've done volunteer work for 16 years. So it's not that I don't have the heart for volunteering. It's just that this particular work is too difficult to do for free, or for cheap, or for, you know, really minimum amounts. It's just not the kind of thing that is sustainable.
Right.
And you'll burn out, and you care less about your business in general when you're not charging a living wage.
I mean, I hear that as a fellow woman business owner. I charge what I charge, and I'm not cheap, and I understand that. And I, cut my rate when I can and when I feel like it's appropriate, and I do volunteer work too. But you have to feed your kids. I mean, we're both single moms,
Right.
and you have to feed your kids, and you have business expenses
Absolutely.
and business overhead, and and you value your time and your skill set and the efforts that you've put into creating what you bring to the table, and that's
Right.
that's
And
worth something too.
volunteering should be done on a schedule that you can work with when you know you're going and you know you'll be done. It can't be done in a capacity where you walk out your door at any given time and you don't know when you're coming home.
Right.
So it does not work.
Right.
And it demeans our entire profession. And yes, I'm a single mom and I have rent to pay, and that isn't cheap.
Yeah. So tell a little bit, because I love this story, about, you were married and you had kids and you really were ready to, leave your marriage and step out on your own and start your business. And I watched it, the way that you kind of jumped. And I'm about to do it. And so I'm hoping the same amazing thing happens for me that happened for you. But you just kind of did it. And you allowed yourself to be in free fall, and the universe really supported you. And so tell everybody about that, because I think there's such a beautiful spiritual lesson here in following your heart and following your passion and doing the thing that brings you joy and that you know is right for you, and letting yourself be supported in that.
Yeah. So I, previously I'd done doula work very part-time, so it wasn't something that supported me. I was married. My husband was primarily, he was the breadwinner. So when I left him, it was before I decided to leave him, I knew that I either had to quit doula work or I had to make it really work for me instead of working for it all the time, because it wasn't going to sustain me the way that I was doing it. And, not charging a living wage and not having the business practices in place.
Right.
But I loved it, and it broke my heart to think about having to stop doing it because I didn't have, a 2-income home. It was just me. So I either had to have complete faith in this and jump into it head first and trust that it was going to work, or I would have to stop altogether and do something else. And I decided to jump and go for it. And it's been amazing. And it is incredible how the universe really provides for you when you just believe that it's going to. And, I've created relationships with, people who send me referrals, and it's just there. The work is there, and so much more is there. And I believe that we are going to do amazing things. I'm partnering up with some wonderful people, and we're going to be launching a new group really soon. I'm looking for a physical location to have classes and hold meetings and just do some really amazing work with supporting families who are having babies. And we support all families, no matter what you're wanting, we're going to help you find it. So no matter what types of families you work with, gay, straight, lesbian, transgender, like I said, epidural, cesarean, it doesn't matter what you want. We want to help you have the most positive experience. And postpartum work too.
I was about to say, let's mention the postpartum work, because people didn't realize that's available, and dang, could I use that.
Well, we specialize in kind of understanding what women go through postpartum. You're going through so many physical and emotional changes that you just feel so out of control. When you have this newborn baby that you have no idea why it's doing the things that it's doing. So we're you feeding, sleeping, changing, bathing, whatever it is that you need, and really taking into account the needs of the postpartum mom, knowing what's normal postpartum, how much are you supposed to be bleeding, hey, you might need to call your doctor about that, just really being there. So we can do, we do it in your home. We just come over and kind of take care of you, take care of baby, help you recover We do placenta encapsulation, which is kind of this new crazy thing. But we dry your placenta and put it into capsules. You can take it. It helps with hormone balancing, your blood loss. It helps with milk production. But energy levels. It's really been incredible kind of the feedback that we're getting back on that. Mm-hmm. But we can do daytime shifts. We can come spend the night with you and take care of your baby at night so that you can sleep. Mm-hmm. Get the most sleep that you possibly can with a newborn. Mm-hmm. So it's not that we just come and take over. We're not baby nurses. We're not night nurses. We are facilitating bonding for you and your baby. So we're helping you, whatever that means to you. Mm-hmm. Again, it's all very individualized plans. So we're sitting down. We are consulting with you about what you're exactly. Mm-hmm. And then we come up with a plan that works for you.
So what I'm hearing you say is that your practice and the way that you work is really about meeting people where they're at and supporting them through that.
Absolutely. It's about the family we're working with. There's not one right way to do it.
Right.
For everybody.
Right.
So.
No, there's not. There's lots of different ways. What would you say, before we wind down here, would be maybe your top 3, if somebody wants to have an amazing birth experience, an amazing postpartum experience, what are your top 3 tips for that person to help them achieve that goal?
Oh, gosh. Well, you need to sit down, like I said, talk to a doula early on and set yourself up with who you want to give birth with, where you want to give birth, where you're going to feel most comfortable, and where you feel safest. That really is the key there. And it's never too late to switch. I've got a client right now. She's 38 weeks and she's switching. Mm-hmm. She found out that she's not going to get what she wants with who she's with. And we sat down and we talked, and I said, I hear what you're saying. And, this is these are your choices at this point. And, so she made a choice, and it's never too late to switch. So, call us even if you're 40 weeks. And we'll kind of go from there. And then for postpartum, set up your support beforehand. Know who you're going to call. Postpartum depression is very real. Baby blues is very real. Mm-hmm. Have a plan in place. Have people who are going to come over and take care of you. Okay. It's hard. We don't live in a society anymore where we take care of our village. And so you kind of have to be proactive about that. Mm-hmm. And be forgiving, be flexible and be forgiving of yourself, because you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to always know what you need to do. You're not always going to have this super close connection with your baby. That's okay. It's really normal. Mm-hmm. And people don't talk about that enough. It comes, and, being able to share with somebody who's not going to judge you for your thoughts is priceless. Having that support is absolutely priceless.
Absolutely.
So I guess those would be my 3 things.
Those are good 3 things. Okay, so if somebody wants to hire you and all of your fabulousness or find out more about you, how do they find you?
You can go to fortworthdoula.com, and that's DOULA is the way you spell doula. fortworthdoula.com.
Okay.
And
I know you're
we
also
are working on some changes. We're going to have a team that's going to be there for people, and it's not just me, because obviously I can't be there 100% of the time.
Just one person, exactly. Exactly. Well, I'm excited to see what's coming up for you, and I really appreciate you being here with us today. I know that people may have questions and emails, and you know how to find Abbey if you want, and she is a font of information, so I encourage you to reach out to her. I also encourage you guys to tune in tonight at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time for Sterling Day's show, Evolution of You. She always has a fabulous show with interesting characters and all kinds of wonderful information to be had. Again, this is clearsourceradio.com. You can find me at heartlightservices.com, and you can find me on Facebook if you just search Heartlight Services. I try to post every day different information and tips to help you kind of live your best life. parenting tips, those sorts of things. So that's where you can find me. I also share information about local providers and interesting things that I find to help you build and grow the best life possible. Hopefully next week at noon when I tune in, I will not have this cold and I will be back to my old self. Next week's theme is going to be parenting, and I'm looking forward to taking questions and calls and helping you work through some of your parenting difficulties and challenges and come up with some solutions. So next week will be a call-in show with yours truly, and I'm looking forward to hosting you there. Abbey, again, thanks so much for today. I really appreciate you, and I'm excited about what's coming for Fort Worth Doula. And thank you. Now, are you going to go catch that baby or watch that baby be born?
I sure hope so. Thank you.
Thanks, Abbey. Bye.
Bye.